Thursday meeting, the 8th of August, 2024. Glad you're here to join us in today's meeting. As usual, we will start with our chaplain prayer and pledges, and I think we have Gary and Marcella Jenkins here to lead us in both.
Good morning, Mayor and members of the council and everybody. God bless you. Will you please join with us in a word of prayer? Precious Father in heaven, in the name of Jesus, we bow before you, the author and the finisher of our faith, to say thank you for this day. We thank you for your grace and your mercy and for blessing us to see another day that you have made. Father, as we assemble in this place, we bow before you, seeking your face and your counsel, asking for you to guide the city council and endow them with wisdom to handle the business that's on the agenda and all of the city business with integrity and with wisdom. We thank you for our mayor, Brenda Gunner. We thank you for all the members of the council and those who assist this council. We thank you for our police officers and first responders. We thank you for this great city, and we pray that you'll continue to let some rain come so that our crops will be in good shape. We thank you for all that you've done, and we ask your blessings in this place. In Jesus' name, let everybody say amen. Amen.
Good morning, everyone. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, God, indivisible. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Come on. I have to read. Yeah. Mr. Fess Parker, famous for his endearing roles as Davy Crockett and Daniel Boone in movies and on television, is a former San Angeloan who never forgot the city where he grew up. Soon after his birth in Fort Worth on August 16, 1924, Fess and his family traveled to San Angelo, where Fess spent his entire childhood and adolescence. He attended Stephen F. Austin Elementary School and graduated from San Angelo High School in 1942, where he played on the Bobcat football team. He joined the service soon after graduation and served with the U.S. Navy during World War II. Following his discharge from the service in 1946, Mr. Parker attended Hardin-Simmons University and then graduated from the University of Texas. It was at UT where Fess took a serious hankering for dramatic acting. Fess began an acting career in 1951, but it wasn't until 1954 that his big break in show business occurred. Searching for a lead actor to play Davy Crockett in one of his productions, Walt Disney watched Fess co-star in a science fiction movie called Them, and was struck by Fess's portrayal of a man unswerving in his beliefs despite all odds. Fess was immediately hired for the role. Fess's career exploded with the Davy Crockett craze. Besides generating a #1 hit song, The Ballad of Davy Crockett, Fess' portrayal also created a merchandising frenzy like anything ever seen. Every little boy in the U.S. dearly wanted a coonskin cap, a buckskin shirt, and a toy rifle called Old Betsy. After completing the series, Fess starred in numerous box office hits, including Old Yeller. Fess put his coonskin cap back on once again in 1964, starring as Daniel Boone on a 6-year run of the popular television show. Fess retired from acting at the age of 47 and began a career in real estate development and ranching near Santa Barbara, California. He often returned to San Angelo for fundraisers, civic events, and updates on the Fine Arts Museum, which at that time was in the Quartermaster Building at Fort Concho, or to simply visit with old friends, teachers, and classmates from San Angelo High School. In an article in the Standard Times in 1963, Fess spoke of San Angelo saying fondly, "After traveling around the country, I still think San Angelo is one of the nicest residential towns I've seen. It hasn't changed essentially, I'm glad to say, but as usual, it looks like it could stand a little rain." Fess Alicia Parker Jr. passed away on March 18, 2010, near Santa Barbara, California. Now, therefore, I, Brenda Gunter, Mayor of the City of San Angelo, Texas, on behalf of the City Council, do hereby recognize and applaud the life of Mr. Fess Alicia Parker Jr. and encourage all citizens to join in celebrating the achievements and the centennial anniversary of the birth of this outstanding citizen of San Angelo on August 16, 2024.
I think we're certainly honored that Fess Parker grew up in this town. Shortly after he was a baby, he got here and didn't leave until World War II. So he went through the Depression and World War II here, and we're certainly honored. But I think more importantly is that Fess Parker was doggone lucky to be raised in a community like ours. He took the values that he learned from West Texas, and he continued using them his entire life. The man you see as Davy Crockett or as Daniel Boone reflects the values that we have here in West Texas. The genuine character of the man, the fact that once you were a friend of Fess Parker, you were always a friend of Fess Parker. Bob's going to be talking about a continuation of our festivities in honor of Fess Parker. It's termed the Fess Parker Film Festival, okay? But I would certainly like to wish Fess Parker, wherever he is, a very happy birthday. Fess Parker, King of the Wild Frontier.
Good morning. I should point out no animals were hurt in the creation of this headgear. Fess Parker is truly one of San Angelo's own, as Councilman Miller has pointed out. People who are communities that claim folks, a lot of times really didn't have them to begin with, but San Angelo is Fess Parker is San Angelo. So we cordially invite all of you, and if you have a coonskin cap from 1955, I'd hang on to it. It's probably worth a lot. We cordially invite you to the Quartermaster at Fort Concho on Friday, August 16, from 6:30 to 8:30 p.m., and on Saturday, August 17, from 2 to 4 p.m., and join us in the first, and I suspect annual, Fess Parker Centennial Celebration, and we will be showing some of the movies that made him famous. We'll have free snacks and popcorn and cold drinks, door prizes, and for you smarties out there, a trivia quiz. So come on down and see us, free to all, family friendly, and we'll see you there August 16 and 17. Thank you.
Come on.
Posterity, huh? I will be mailing this proclamation off to Fess Parker's family in California.
We will now move into the public comment section of the agenda. Issues or concerns not on the regular agenda may be raised by the public at this time. Citizens should speak from the podium, address all comments to the dais, begin by stating their name and address or single-member district number, and limit their remarks to less than 3 minutes. Are there people in the audience who would like to come forward and make public comment? If so, please come forward.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. We just wanted to, this is Charlotte Anderson from Keep San Angelo Beautiful. We wanted to share with you an award that we received from the State of Texas Alliance for Recycling, acknowledging our excellence in environmental education program. The students we work with are called KSAB Junior Ambassadors, and they all take a pledge to be litter-free. They receive materials and educational projects around Earth Day and America Recycles Day. At this time, we work with about 3,500 to 4,000 students. In addition to our education process, we also do other projects. So our book, ABC 26 Ways to Keep San Angelo Beautiful, that was distributed to over 12,000 students, all of which were elementary, and our outreach went, in addition to our SAISD elementary kids, we shared that with TLCA, with Grape Creek Elementary, Wall, and Christoval. So really proud of that. In addition, we worked with a special project with Art in Uncommon Places, and we have 2 beautiful murals on the river that are at Avenue A and Hill Street and right at Irving, and they are just fantastic. So if you get an opportunity, go by and check those out. Just a couple of friendly reminders. We do have an event coming up October 12th is our fall sweep, moving backwards. September the 7th is our tire event. We want to thank our COG for extra funding. We will have 3 trucks for this event, so we're excited about that. And then this month, August the 23rd, we'll be hosting Dr. Alper. So if you're interested in plastics and how they can be eradicated, this would be a great opportunity to get some information on that. August 23rd, it is at the ASU Alumni Center, and it's a free event. So we hope you'll reach out and join us. Just shoot me an email, and we'll put you on the list.
Thank you, Charlotte. Further public comment?
Good morning. I'm Karen Martin at 114 Inwood. I am the past president and current chairman of the board of the San Angelo Elks Lodge, and I'm here to speak about the Elks Lodge. We have 2 different entities. We have the Elks National Foundation and the Sweetheart Program. I'm going to talk to you first about the Elks National Foundation. It deals with our veterans, our drug awareness, and our scholarship program. The Veterans Program, we have 2 different major projects. The first one is our Welcome Home Kits, and they represent any person who is coming out of rehab or homelessness. If they get an apartment, we provide everything from brooms to dishes to pots and pans, linens, everything but furniture. And then we have what's called our Home Away from Home program, which for single military members that don't get to go home for Christmas, we provide them a Christmas. We give them presents, food, fellowship. It's a big party. We all have a great time. We also, the 3rd Saturday of every month, we provide breakfast for the veterans and first responders. Twice a year, we feed them lunch, and we partner with Big Springs, and we feed all the veterans in the Big Spring VA Hospital. We also have our scholarship program. This year, we provided a $2,000 scholarship to a vocational tech student, and we provided 11 academic scholarships totaling $5,500 to local students. Our scholarship program is now open, so if you have or know a senior, get in touch with us, and we have a wonderful academic scholarship program. Our Sweetheart Program, we partner with West Texas Rehab. I always have trouble saying that. I don't know why. And we have provided cranial helmets, computers, a service dog. We've provided so many devices with them for special needs kids in the local area and the surrounding area. We also have a camp down in Austin, Texas, that we provide 1 week a child 7 to 21 years old gets to go for free. They have a pool, they go to SeaWorld, they have wonderful full staff, everything is provided for free during the summer. This month, the 24th and 25th, we are sponsoring our district training, and we will have between 60 and 70 people there, including the Elks state president and her spouse. If you want to be an ordinary person doing extraordinary things, get with the San Angelo Elks Lodge, and we will get you all the information that you need. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I have a question.
Just a minute, please, Larry.
Yes.
On your home away from home, I'm assuming that's during the Christmas holidays?
It is on Christmas.
Okay. The base, as you know, has Exodus, but there's still a lot of kids that are still out there at the base.
Yes, sir.
I assume that that's where you're tapping the
Yes, sir.
majority.
I used to work on the base. I'm retired civil service, and I have my POCs there. And we started out our first year, we had like 9 people. We last year had probably 60 to 70 people, if not more. And we had them calling their friends saying, y'all need to come out here. You need to come here. It's a wonderful opportunity. We partner with the Lions Club occasionally, and we do a joint on Christmas. But even during COVID, we had it out at the Wells Fargo Pavilion so we could do the proper spacing and all that.
Do you accept volunteers? Can
Yes,
I
sir.
call you up?
We love volunteers.
Okay, if you could give us that phone number. So
I
we
have
can-
it. It is 227-6920.
Thank you, ma'am.
Further public comment?
Morning,
Good
Ginger
morning.
Moore, 4178 Ruby Lane, San Angelo, Texas. I just want to put a plug in for the Elks. My husband was an ENF donor for $10,000, and it goes to great causes. But I came for the Tom Green County Appraisal District. Their meeting for the board is going to be on Tuesday at 11 o'clock at the Appraisal District. I have issues with several things about the appraisal district, including the fact that the 3 new elected board members did not have to be elected because the Tom Green County judge was only required to put it in the county courthouse for those 3 elected positions, and nobody knew. So we have 8 board members, 3 of which were selected versus I think elected. And that, again, is my personal opinion, because they had only 3 people that applied and only 3 people were selected. So to me, that was not the way it was intended to be for an elected official. There are 3 counties that have completely replaced their boards in the state of Texas. So I would suggest that people show up for the board meeting, because the board in their plan decided that they will appraise us every single year instead of once every 3 years as required by the comptroller. So that's my issue, and I thank you for your time, and have a blessed day.
Further public comment?
Jamal Shumpert, single member district number 3. Mayor, today I'm here to talk about, I guess it's the code enforcement policy as well as the leash law policy, leash law ordinance. And it was a situation, I guess, on July, we had a meeting in which a woman said that Republic kept missing her route. And I thought of a solution that maybe we could renegotiate Republic's contract and put in a fine or a penalty for if they miss handicapped people. That way we won't have to worry about receiving complaints or calls from the Justice Department or the Civil Rights Department. That's just an easy fix for that. As far as the code enforcement, I called them and I told them to cut it. And as you see, this is up to 3 feet. This is in our area that dumps off into the Concho River. There is tires as well as trash amongst construction work. And this is an alley. This isn't actually in the riverbed. It is an awful place. And what my focus is that I think if we clean this part up, maybe we could get more water into our drains. Because the drain that goes further down, it dumps off into this, and all of this goes downwards. and it's been creating a big problem. And I'm pretty sure that the grass isn't supposed to be that color. So it might be some other stuff in there. So when it's another item we have on the agenda that they're supposed to be doing some testing. I'm not sure if they're going to test this area for dumping or not, but it could possibly be a reason, as well as the tires. That is the bridge, the 2-now bridge I'm talking about, in which when we're cutting that bridge, we're actually leaving about 4 or 5 feet of grass. So it's leaving a puddle of water in which there is vector breeding going on. I didn't bring those pictures. I didn't think they'd be, I guess, appropriate to show out here because, you know, they kind of get nasty. But I just wanted to run through the pictures. I'm not trying to embarrass anybody. But this also as well is a problem. When it rains, that oil will go into our drains, maybe make it to our drains, if not, make it on the side of the street. But this is a problem which y'all did talk about. This owner has multiple cars on his property, on the actual yard. It is a business, so they can't do it, but I can only imagine how much pressure he's putting on the actual grid, the water grid. As far as the leash law, well, I guess I'll have to discuss that later. I'm out of time. Thank you.
Thank you, Jamal. Further public comment?
Carl White, Parks and Recreation. I didn't want another opportunity to pass by without introducing our new recreation manager, Jesse Bennis, so folks can match the name with the face, council, and the community.
Yes, I'm grateful for the opportunity to be here and to serve the community and look forward to working with y'all more.
Welcome. We're glad you're here. More public comment? Anyone else? Going once? Twice? The end of public comment. So we will now move into the consent agenda. I'll ask every council member if there's an item they'd like to pull from the agenda. So I'll start with Larry.
Item G.
Item G will be pulled. Karen?
No, ma'am.
Lucy?
No, ma'am.
Harry?
Item E.
Item E. Tom?
I was thinking about one, but I'll let it go. We're good.
And
No,
Tom?
no.
No. All right. With that, we will take a motion to approve all the items on the consent agenda with the exception of items E and item G. May I have that motion? So moved by Harry, seconded by?
Tom.
Larry.
By Larry.
Anybody?
So any public comment on the items with the exception of item E and G?
Jamal Shumper, single member, district number 3. I would like you to pull item C and D. It was some stuff I would like to talk about on item C and D. Other than that, that's all I have.
All right, so the motion would have to be changed because the motion was to approve all items with the exception of E and G. So I would need for that motion to be changed, if you will, and to be inclusive of C and D. May I have that motion?
So moved.
So moved by Harry, seconded by Larry. Again, any further public comment except on items C, D, E, and G? Seeing none, we'll take a vote. All those in favor of approving the consent agenda with the exception of C, D, E, and G, say aye. Aye. None opposed. Motion passes 7-0. We will start with item C, consider approving task order 4 under the Professional Services Master Services Agreement with CDM Smith for groundwater testing and monitoring for the Lake Nasworthy Sewer Trunk Main Project in the amount of $94,900 and authorizing the city manager to negotiate and execute all related documents. Shane?
Yes, ma'am. I guess since Jamal was wanting to make comment, we'll listen to Jamal's comments
Okay.
and then we can go from there.
Okay.
Mayor, I was a little concerned about this one because I'm not sure if it affects our drought contingency plan, because we chose the Concho River Water Supply Project, and given that they found hydrocarbons, which what I could find on the internet is petroleum products, gas products, so things of that nature. I'm not sure if it really affects that. And if it does, could we look into seeing another alternative? Because I looked at the four strategies that Improtech Hibbs chose. One of the strategies is about 56 miles away, but it's very, very good. But as far as I wanted to know what was going on with this is if this will affect our water Concho River Supply Water Project for the future, as well as how much more it'll cost us, because I know there's more monitoring going on just reading the task order.
All right, we'll let Shane address those issues if he can.
Yes, ma'am. This will not affect the drought contingency plan for the city, and it doesn't have really any effect. Actually, on the Concho River, while this was adjacent to the Concho River, it wasn't. The hydrocarbons or none of that was actually found in the river water or the source of river water itself. This was in groundwater that was in a pit close to the river and not actually in the river. And so there was not ever any noticeable sheen or anything actually in the river itself. And so, but this will allow us to go in there and put some monitoring wells in around the site to see if it has, if it's leaching from an off-site onto this site, trying to figure out what the limits of the hydrocarbons in the area are that's in the groundwater. And so we'll be doing the monitoring and testing on that. Again, there's been no seen or noticed effect in the river or on the river. And this is far upstream. I mean, this is right off, basically off within probably 2 miles of the Nasworthy Bridge, and so it doesn't necessarily affect anything downstream where we're talking about any future water projects that we may have. So,
Thank you.
Ma'am?
Yes,
I have
Larry.
a question for Shane. The discovery of this substance, is your work on it, is it required by federal or state law?
yes, when we were notified, the city was notified by our contractor as well as the TCEQ when the sheen was noticed, and as part of the action plan to basically discover, try to find the source or see how far or if it's spread from this site, or if it's coming from another site onto our site. And so it is a requirement of the TCEQ for us to go out and investigate this.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Shane? All right. So may I have a motion to approve item C? So moved by Tommy, seconded by Harry. Public comment, further public comment on that item? Seeing none, we'll take a vote. All those in favor of approving item C, say aye.
Aye.
Hearing all yays, item C is approved. We'll move to item D, consider approving change order 3 to WU-04-23, Lake Nasworthy Wastewater System Improvements Project with McKee Utility Contractors, LLC, for the total amount of $171,807.31, utilizing project contingency funds and authorizing the city manager to negotiate and execute all related documents. Jamal, you want to ask a question?
Yeah, really just for the explanation of it. This may sound real dumb, but I wanted to know how the working parts were on this, because you have a contractor and a subcontractor, and I wanted to know. It's kind of clear. I think the subcontractor does the boring or whatnot, but I'm not sure if some of the charges I saw for the contractor were just moving charges or were they working charges.
Okay.
That's kind of what I was looking at.
Shane?
Yeah, there's actually two portions to this. One of them is we had issues with one property owner securing an easement, so we did actually have to adjust the alignment of the pipeline just slightly to ensure that we didn't interfere with that one property owner's land. And so in doing so, there was some additional charges that were incurred in that. portion of that was because of the issues and how long it took for us to resolve those issues. There was a remobilization fee because the contractor was here doing his work, and it took us a while, and he finished his work, left, and now he's having to come back, so there was a remobilization fee associated with it, as well as there were some extra supplies. There's an extra manhole, some extra pipe, things like that, to adjust and cost for the alignment. And so those are where those costs come from. The other portion of this is bollards. In a lot of the open fields that we have, they are routinely mowed, and so to protect our manholes and our manhole covers, we're placing some bollards in certain places in these big open fields, so when they do go in there with the big shredders and tractors, that they're not tearing up our manholes and causing I&I issues with our system. So,
Okay.
and that's the kind of the two parts of this and the costs associated.
Council, do you have any questions or further information needed from Shane? All right, thank you, Shane. So may I have a motion for approval of item D?
So move.
So moved by Harry. Second. Second by Lucy. Public comment? Seeing none, hearing none, we'll take a vote. All those in favor of approving item D, say aye.
Aye.
None opposed, motion passes 7-0. Item E is consider a resolution accepting a donation from Shannon Medical Center and Angelo State University in support of the city's community accessibility and connectivity project. Patrick? Come on.
Jeremy.
Morning.
Yeah.
Patrick is unable to attend today, but
That's all right.
he sent his best replacement. So.
Good. Glad
So,
to have you.
Yep. This item is in regards to our community accessibility and connectivity project. It's just accepting a donation from ASU and Shannon. There's a portion of our project that crosses their property, and in order to facilitate that, they were able to donate some monetary funds to cover their matching portion of the grant fund. I believe it's $400,000 from ASU and $25,000 from Shannon.
So I
Yes,
asked
Larry.
to pull this one. Jeremy, the only question I had is it the amount of sidewalk that's crossing the property that causes the amount of donation? And there's such a disparity between the $25,000 from Shannon and the $400,000 from ASU. I think public wants to know, is it because of the amount of concrete that's going to be crossing the property?
Correct. Yeah, so it's proportionate to the project itself, the dollar amount and the amount of infrastructure that's going in. The $400,000 for ASU is roughly their 20% match of what we're expected to pay on the grant funds. And likewise for Shannon, the sidewalk we're putting in along Beauregard there is the matching portion is roughly $25,000. So it just covers our matching portion of it, which makes their dollar go further. So.
Thank you. I move to approve as presented.
Matt, thank you. Public comment? Seeing none, we'll take a vote. All those in favor of approving item E, say aye.
Aye.
None opposed, motion passes 7-0. Item G, consider ratifying COSA DC's approval of the sale of approximately 17.611 acres in the San Angelo Business and Industrial Park Phase 1 to LTG Real Estate Group, LLC, at a price of $25,000 per acre. The exact acreage and total price to be determined by a survey on the ground, and authorizing the board president to negotiate and execute all related documents. Michael Dane, you are on.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. Michael Dane, Interim Economic Development Director. We're excited about this sale. This is the corner lot, that most prominent corner in Phase 1, sale to Lone Star Truck Group. The lot has a couple of significant obstacles for development. One is access on and off TxDOT right-of-ways, and the other is elevation of the lot. That front corner lot, the front corner of that lot sits very low, and we want those trucks sitting up nice and high where people can see them, and they do too. Our estimate of what it will take to remediate those two items is approximately $440,000. So we think that should be considered in the sale price of the lot. When you add the $440,000 of that specific development cost to the agreed upon price of $25,000 per acre, it brings the estimated cost to the developer up to approximately $50,000 an acre for those items. There are other costs that they'll bear, but we think those two items are an equalizing factor, which bring the $25,000 sale per acre sale price up to above the $48,000 per acre appraised value. So we're excited. We're looking forward to seeing shiny trucks sitting on that corner in front of a nice new facility, and we're here for questions if you have any.
Larry?
My question was, I wanted to make sure that we're just selling the land with no improvements on it whatsoever.
As is.
As is, and they'll be covering the cost of the access road to Loop 306 and the improvement to the property, as you mentioned. Is that correct?
That's correct.
The other question I had was the per acre cost. Is that consistent with the current surveys of that property?
It is. It's a little higher than previous sales in Phase 1, but it is consistent with the most recent estimate we received from an appraiser, and is consistent with what land has recently sold for in Phase 2 of the industrial park. So we think that both the sale price and those unique development costs for that tract make that an equitable price compared to that estimate of value and recent sales in Phase 2.
It's a high visibility corner.
We're hoping to see some shiny trucks.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Other questions? All right, so would you like to make a motion to approve it? Okay, and a second?
Second.
A second by Tommy. Any public comment on this item?
Jamal Shumpert, single member, district number 3. Mayor, it really does sound good, and I would be in favor of this maybe 4 years ago. But given that there's such a steep decline, it almost seems like we're subsidizing the cost to do business out there. And given the fact that they are in close proximity to Amazon, and Amazon will need trucks, they'll already have someone right there to operate with, which is why I don't think we should lower it that much. Maybe we should give them a rate, maybe $40,000, $35,000, because they still also are eligible for incentives or tax abatement, if I'm correct. I could be wrong on that. So they could be dipping in this pot up to 3 times and, maybe give us 5 employees, 10 employees. Maybe we should look into maybe lowering, but not to 25, was it 24,000? Maybe not that much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any further public comment? We'll take a vote. All those in favor of approving the item, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0. With that, I believe it concludes our consent agenda. So we will move into the regular agenda. Comments regarding items on the regular agenda may be made by the public when each item is discussed as outlined above. Applicants, proponents, and appellants are exempt from the time limit above and instead must limit their remarks to less than 5 minutes. We will start with item A, consider authorizing the following resolutions regarding grant awards from the Texas Department of Transportation, known as TxDOT, under its Transportation Alternatives Set Aside Grant Program for the City of San Angelo Community Accessibility and Connectivity Project, or CACP. 1, resolution authorizing the city manager to negotiate and execute an advanced funding agreement with TxDOT for Phase 1 of the CACP. And 2, resolution authorizing the city manager to negotiate and execute an advanced funding agreement with TxDOT for Phase 2 of CACP. Jeremy, you're back on.
Morning. Jeremy Miller, Assistant Director of Operations. A bit of housekeeping for you this morning in regards to our CACP project. The next steps in the progression of this project is to execute an advanced funding agreement with TxDOT, which will allow us to receive the grant funds and administer the project. The project has been split up into 2 phases. The first phase will be along Chadbourn Street from Beauregard to 5th Street, which will also coincide with our Chadbourn Phase B project, the reconstruction of the road. And then the second phase will be the remaining loop around the city with the pedestrian improvements. So today we're seeking approval to a resolution to enter into advanced funding agreements for both of those projects, as well as amend the current budget to reflect and schedule the associated revenue and expense with this project. So we'll have the grant funds from the state, roughly $18.8 million. And then the local, the 20% match of that, we're going to use the tiers money, the $3.4 million, and the donated funds we just spoke about, the $425,000, as well as some street bond money to round out the total expenses on that. So just housekeeping, but be happy to answer any questions you have about that.
Questions from council? Harry?
I'm waiting for this. When can we start the second phase on Chadburn? I know the mayor was going to ask that question, but I just, I'd like to see it done sooner than later.
Yes, sir. We all agree. Part of the reason for splitting this project into 2 phases was to allow for that to help speed up the timeline. So we're hoping we'll get this, once we're approved here, we'll start negotiating and get the advance funding agreement executed. And then we're hoping to let that project around the first of the year, if not the end of this year. So, and then construction will be a few months after that. So.
Thank you, Jeremy. Other questions from council? Then may I have a motion for approval of item A?
Move to approve.
Harry's made a motion to approve. May I have a second? Second by Tommy. Any public comment on this item? Seeing none, we'll take a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
None opposed. That motion passes 7-0. Item B is consider a record vote to propose a property tax rate and discussion regarding the fiscal year 2024-25 budget preparation. Tina, you are on.
Thank you, Mayor. Tina Deersky, Director of Finance. As you said, we're going to discuss the tax rate that we'll set for this next fiscal year. Since we last met, the state implemented new legislation with a calculation that yielded us an unused increment of 1.8 cents. And on the next slide, we'll have a proposal on how we use that additional funding that yielded us about $2 million right there. And so let me see this next slide. So originally we had talked about some funding strategies and issuing short-term debt, moving the equipment replacement and fire truck replacement off of the M&O side of the tax rate and onto the INS side of the tax rate. With this unused increment, we're able to move that back into the M&O side of the tax rate and use that short-term debt for some public safety capital needs and some other needs that we have as a city. The public safety radio infrastructure, $1.5 million will remain the same. The river stage improvements will increase by about $61,000. The Axon agreement will be funded at a cost of $3.7 million.
You want to explain what Axon is for everyone?
Yes, ma'am. Actually, the chief has a few slides right after I go through this one, and he'll kind of tell you what all is included with that and why it's important. So.
Okay, continue, and then we'll have him come up.
Okay, and public safety radios, $600,000 of that is for fire department radios. The other $200,000 is for police department radios. I want to point out that the police department did receive some grant funding for their radios in the amount of $1.6 million. And so that 200 is kind of a local match for that grant. And then we'll allocate an additional $250,000 for ambulances for the fire department. And I'll move to the next slide so Chief Griffith can come and talk about the Axon agreement.
Thank you, Tina. Thank you, Council, Mayor, for letting me come up here and speak today. So we've been working through this for a while. We've been partners with Axon, which is all-encompassing. So Axon is our video storage, which is a massive undertaking in the 21st century for law enforcement. Basically, every police car has a front and back camera. They have a body-worn camera on every officer that's doing enforcement, and even we've moved that now to our detectives as well. And it's also a weapons system. It's an electronic weapons system. And so this is a contract we've had since about 2017-ish time frame. And so we have a massive amount of information that's stored through that. And that's where a lot of the cost comes into is storing. I mean, imagine every traffic stop. We have over 100,000 calls for service last year. And so with every interaction we have with the public, it records an immense amount of data. And as we see these cameras get even higher resolution, it means more data storage. So that's kind of the biggest undertaking there. And before we get too far into the weeds of what Axon is, I just want to say that we've worked through the radio system and worked with Axon to trim off any fat we can that is trying to save the city money. On the radio contract side, we were able to save off just right at about $1 million, almost $1.1 million, to be able to save money for the city. and try to reallocate money that we can use elsewhere. And I worked with Axon directly because I know it's a tight budget year. And so with me and Daniel had talked through this and was able to work through talking to Axon and knocked off roughly just about $400,000 from that contract. So we're down to $3.7 million, which is a big number, and I know that is a lot, and we take that seriously when we physically responsible with what we do. And so as we move forward in this, I want to explain kind of what we're doing here. You see that we'll be replacing end-of-life taser weapon systems. So that's electronic weapon systems. I'm going to actually move over to the next slide here. This is the weapon system that we currently have. They were manufactured in 2011 and manufactured in 2013. Those weapon systems are only a 5-year end of life, so that's how long they're good for. I look at Axon, especially in the weapon systems, almost kind of like a ladder truck, that you don't always need a ladder truck on every fire call, but when you need a ladder truck, you know you need a ladder truck, right? Same thing goes for our weapon system, is we're trying to lower officers' deadly force situations and also save injuries to officers and suspects whenever we're utilizing less than lethal weapons. And the law, as we see this go forward to the legislation, they required that we have some form of less lethal, and this is the best less lethal weapon that we can put out and utilize as of today. So it will lower liabilities. Issue that we're running into right now is that because these weapon systems are so old, you look at that Taser X22, which is on the right, that end of life 5 years, so 2016 was end of life. And so here we are, 2024, and by the time we get these, it'll be 2025. We're having issues with these weapon systems working. A lot of officers are stop carrying them because they don't work properly. And it's end of life, meaning Taser, or Axon, I should say, does not service them anymore. They don't exist. We skipped an entire generation of weapon system. If you see right here, this is the full scale. The X26 was the first weapon system that came out in the early 2000s, and then they reformatted that and made the X26P, which used the same cartridge. These are single-shot weapon systems, so if you miss, it's not good, right? So it doesn't do any good at all. It just makes a little pop noise. And then we moved to the X2, which is kind of like a Derringer. It's kind of like the way I put that. Like you have a weapon system that has 2 shots. So hopefully on one of those 2, you make connection and be able to use it. We're seeing those probably have the most issue right now, but battery life and the cartridges, they don't make them like that anymore. So they actually moved to, in 2018, they moved to Taser 7s, which still had a distance issue. So if you look down at the bottom, they're running at about 21 foot up until Taser 10. Taser 10 moved to 45 foot, which I'll give an example of that. We had a situation here in San Angelo not too long ago where an individual was threatening law enforcement, had fired shots out of his house towards a neighbor's residence, and we had the house surrounded. He was going through a kind of emotionally disturbed situation, and our officers were out front calling him out, trying to get him to come out peacefully, and he picked up an axe and came running at our officers. Thankfully, we had beanbag rounds, but I want you to understand what a beanbag round is. That's a 12-gauge shotgun round that we fire at them that has a less impact. So you can't use it very close, and it's for distance, and it basically hits you really hard in the gut, right? We were able to strike him multiple times, and through pain compliance is what that is. We were able to, just before we had to use deadly force, as he's running at an axe with multiple officers, we would have had a terrible situation. If we would have had a Taser 10 in this situation, we could have, before he even started running at us, as he's coming out on the front porch with this axe, we could have utilized that weapon system, which immobilizes them, right? That's the thing. It's not pain compliance. It's muscle structure of the body that once you get the 2 connection points, it shuts them down. So that's the major difference is we're trying to find ways to save the lives of citizens that we're encountering and the officers that are out there dealing with this. And that's less stress for them to have to go to court and everything else that's going to be associated with the city and liability. So the goal is to not have to use lethal force. When we're moving into what's in-car systems, we have one of the first systems that Axon came out with for their in-car systems, which is recording our traffic stops. It intertwines with our body cameras, and I know that City Legal has they're constantly inundated with requests of those videos, and so it's a lot that goes into our records. We have a supervisor that manages that full time. It's a lot of stuff that goes into it, but it does make it simpler. So what this license plate reader system is going to provide is a way that it turns our in-car cameras into a data collection point. So if we have a missing child, right, we have a missing child come out and we had maybe something like a kidnapping situation, we could put that license plate into the system, and every police car that's out there, to include the Tom Green County Sheriff's Department, would be able to start looking for that further and far beyond the human eye, right? So it uses that camera system to actually run that plate and look for that missing child. Or maybe where we see a silver alert, maybe your grandmother or grandfather goes missing, we don't know where they went. We'll be able to put that in there and start narrowing down our search pattern, because even before it goes in, the cars are constantly collecting that data point. So if you have a missing elderly individual, we're trying to look all over the city, but if we are able to go back in and run that plate and it shows, hey, they were last seen north on Chadburn through this hit off of our license plate reader, we can start deploying resources there and provide information to law enforcement agencies that are outside that area. So it's a huge thing, and this is a Fairfax County PD. They did the first full deployment that they had. They were able to find 134 stolen vehicles in that time frame that they did this study, and 384 total cases that were involved in this, and 19 missing persons were found, and over $100,000 in property was located. That's usually what you see in retail theft. And then 222 people were arrested off of that. So we're leveraging technology, and we know we're shorthanded. So this is a way to help provide us a way to be able to give resources and help take people into custody, find stolen vehicles, and find missing kids and adults that might be experiencing that silver alert system. Auto transcribe, as we're looking at using technology to try to save time and energy. What that program is it allows for the biggest aspect is you're on homicide scene. You're going to have a minimum of probably about 10 officers on that scene to begin with, and they're going to be talking to witnesses, they're going to be canvassing neighborhoods, you'll have additional detectives that show up. So you start thinking about all these different cameras that are out there and how much data there is. Auto transcribe is going to be able to have a word search, and that's what the problem that we run into is detectives are having to spend an immense amount of time trying to find, where did this witness say this? Where did we find that gun? Where's this point at? It provides a word search that you can go in and look for. If you're looking for a maroon mercury, right? You type in the word maroon mercury and it will pull up every video that comes up with the word maroon mercury being used. So it's saving time and data. It's able to earmark those places for the prosecution, and we're seeing just more productivity out of the detectives to be able to have to spend all that time trying to find one point of data that they're looking for. Also, we're going to try to use this. We're going to pilot program officers being able to type their reports using the system. So when you conclude your call, you're in a sterile environment. You can start saying, I, Chief Griffith, on this day responded to this location in regards to this call, and it will auto transcribe that. And then we can put it into the report. And so you're saving time on typing as well. Again, when we're understaffed, this is a tool that I think will really help us. Axon Performance is an excellent tool that is, when we talk about our weapon systems, it's a lot like a canine. We don't have a whole lot of canine bites in the year, but when we first started our canine program, there was a whole lot of utilizations of our canine. Now, when people see the dog, they don't want to mess with the dog, right? So when we get tasers back out there at the forefront, there's a lot of times even just having a taser on the scene will keep people from acting in an aggressive manner. So that's important, right? So just the deterrent. And so what Axon Performant does is every time the weapon system comes out of the holster, it logs it, right? So it's good for being accountable, like keeping officers accountable that we're not doing anything we shouldn't do, but also that, hey, when is this working? And Axon Performant also allows for us to search our video cameras. So if you have an officer that's doing a lot of let's say they're getting a little bit out of line, they cuss a lot, right? It will actually flag that for you based off the information that you cue into it. So it has a lot of great things for supervision, and it also provides the ability to be able to show when are our weapon systems being used, how are they being used. It's an immense amount of data that we can use to come back to y'all in 5 years and say, hey, here's what we've been doing with the weapon system, here's how it's worked effectively. And that's the key thing. We are working on a budget. We are working on a grant for about $350,000. We're not guaranteed the grant, but we're working through the Department of Justice on that. So that would be something we can offset in one of those future years.
How long are these products in life? And are they good for 10 years? Are they good for 5 years? I'm sure each one of them has a little bit different life on them.
It's a great question. And so what we've seen right now is we've been able to deploy our in-car systems for about 6 years right now that we'll have. And in worst case scenario, if we could run those, but they're not going to make it that much longer. You go back to that 2011 weapon systems, we're already seeing failures. We started seeing failures in those probably about 8 to 10 years in. So that's probably about the max you would want to run. Just like with anything else, you wouldn't necessarily want to be using tools that are end of life when a company uses that. So end of life is 5 years for, I think, all the products. We can make them last what we've been doing for 2, 3, 4 years more. I think past that, you're really getting into an issue with liability.
I think it's pretty exciting to see how advanced all of these products are and what you're able to do, record, protect, and ensure safety for officers, but also what it will add to the safety of citizens in this community. So it's exciting to see the advanced technology, much greater than I think I was aware was out there and available. And I'm assuming your officers are very excited about this new technology and the new things that will be coming their way to help them in their jobs.
Yes, ma'am. They're excited to definitely have weapon systems that work and that can have multiple discharges. I was explaining to somebody else earlier that our system's kind of like a Derringer. Moving to this new weapon system would provide almost like a magazine-fed weapon. I mean, if we're moving from a lever action from a musket, it's going to really help.
That's a good way to put it. Yes, Tom?
Chief, what do we do with the old equipment? I mean, does some of this equipment, are you able to resell it? I mean, do we have a lottery for tasers?
So we have, I think our department has really been a hodgepodge of, I think you've already been to that guy's garage where he has like one of each drill, but it's a DeWalt, and then it's a robot, right? And you go into all these different things, and they don't work together. So we have that right now. We have every iteration that there has been of Axon to the beginning of time, I think, for them. Most of these are not worth anything. I have, during my negotiations with Axon, asked them if they want to buy some of these back. In-cars would probably be something that they're looking at. They haven't got back to us on that because, I mean, we're like 2 generations behind everything. So we've squeezed the last bit of life out of a lot of these products, and so the value would be, pennies on the dollar at best, but we're going to do what we can.
Well,
we count pennies around here.
Yes, ma'am. And and anything we can, we're shooting for. But
I have people within my district that will call me and say, okay, what do they do? I know when we talk about getting rid of a fire truck and we do things, there's people that, I just needed you to kind of state the process that we go through, and you're pursuing an avenue to get rid of it if profitably, if we can. If not, it gets disposed of.
Yes, sir. And that's the big thing is that anything that we can get back in whether or not that's 10 cents or that's $10, we'll do everything we can. It's just whether or not they want those products as old as they are. They didn't sound super enthused.
Understood.
Yeah.
Cool. Thanks.
Tommy?
Chief, I would assume there are updates, upgrades to the software, to the equipment, and so forth. Is that included in the price that we are going to be paying for this?
Yes, sir. That's a great question. I'm sorry I didn't cover that. So actually, the total price is even better than it was in the last contract in regards to unlimited cartridges come through this contract. So we can use the weapon system as many times as we need. We get an upgrade to a new body camera at in between year 2 and 3. So if there's a new design that comes out, we can upgrade to that. One thing I didn't touch on is the new body cameras that we would be moving to provide a wider angle of view. It's one thing that we've run into in court and other things is that if I'm facing you right now and somebody pulls a gun out over here, then it's not recorded, right? So the more we can get that angle out, and the Axon 4 body camera also has a secondary mount that you can put to a hat or to a shoulder mount that gives you 2 angles of video that can be added to it. We're going to test that out and see if it's going to be appropriate for us, but there's a lot more things that we can do that are built into the cost. So it's a great question.
Good, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Other questions, comments, Larry, and then Lucy?
This may be the first time the word, or excuse me, the initials AI have come up in the city council meeting.
Hey,
but
that'd be
it
the
is
first.
very exciting.
Yes, sir.
I do have some questions on,
Yes, sir.
you're talking hundreds of thousands of calls.
Yes, sir.
You're talking about a license plate reader.
Yes, sir.
That requires significant storage of information.
Yes, sir.
I guess I'm a little curious how you're going to handle that.
So unlimited. That's why these contracts, a lot of departments tried to do their own management and very, very quickly started to see that it's impossible. So that Axon is CJIS certified, which means it meets the Department of Justice standards for security. And they do that in multiple locations. So there's one on East Coast, one on West Coast, and I believe one in the central part of the United States. And those are stored separately so that if something, God forbid, was to happen, some explosion, it's not lost. What we're seeing is in the court system, this is imperative. We have to have it. Digital evidence is what it's called, is the foundation of 21st century police work. And I would love to go back to the old days when I first started, you could handwrite stuff and not have to store that anywhere other than a filing cabinet. But right now we're having to just deal with this as almost like a capital improvement. This is going to be a part of like a car payment. It's something that's needed. It's going to work. And honestly, it's important to have that stored properly, because we try to store that here and something happened. Heck, if y'all remember a few years ago, somebody ran right into our police station in a pursuit. So we don't want that to run. They ran right into our video storage. If we were doing it locally, then we would lose all that data. So I think that having those checks and balances are good, and it's a great question to know that we're going to have unlimited storage of the program.
Got another great question.
I'm with you. Let's go.
On the license plate reader,
Yes, sir.
is that a casual scan, or is it has to be anything done to key on that license plate? Like, for instance, you're driving down 306 in your cruiser, you pass a car. Is that thing automatically going to scan that car?
Yes, sir. It's important to know that I really support everything I do is off the Constitution, and we're not dumping that to like the federal government or something. That's stored locally on our system. Axon can't even get that without our permission, as the contract reads, I believe. And so that's just going to store there locally. And what's good for that is, imagine if we have a bank robbery, right? The bank robbery happens downtown. That immediately, first units get on scene, they can secure, make sure the bank robber is gone, and we start getting witness information. We can put that license plate into the system. If there's anybody that was patrolling 5-10 minutes before that, right, could punch that in and pull that data back. So that vehicle that's driving down the road, like you're talking about, that could be nothing. And most of the data points will be nothing. But whenever you do have that robbery, you can go back in and key that in and find that vehicle went northbound or where it came from before it did the robbery. It's going to really help in that area. And you can ask for shared information so Odessa has already gone full deployment with this. Midland is going into a contract, and Abilene is in strong consideration for it. So that's good, because then if we have something happen in any one of those cities, then we can run those data too as cooperation between the agencies and be able to find those, a murder suspect, which I think everybody would agree that anything we can do to help find those suspects and bring them to justice is a good tool to have.
One final question.
Yes, sir.
It concerns your body cameras.
Yes, sir.
And I'm talking from a national level, that every once in a while an incident comes up, and lo and behold, the camera was off when it happened.
Yes, sir.
What are you guys doing to ensure that those kinds of mistakes aren't made?
Yes, sir. We're talking about the human aspect, or maybe even some nefarious action. With the weapon systems, we have what's called Axon Signal built into our cars. So as soon as you turn your lights on, it activates your in-car and your body-worn camera. Sometimes it happens very quickly where somebody flags you down, you don't even know what's going on, they just kind of wave you down, like they're just going to ask where directions are that you might not have your camera on. Let's say that goes badly, then as soon as you pull your weapon system out, it also has a built-in signal device that would turn your camera on both in your car and on your body. So we're trying to find ways to be able to eliminate that, and I'm sure City Legal would love that. Whenever we have it on camera, it's pretty hard to dispute what happens. And so we've seen it lower use of force even when people know cameras are there. It's getting a little bit outdated now, but it is a great question, though.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Lucy?
Yes,
Hello,
ma'am.
Chief. Thank you for all your information.
Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to ask, how many not body cameras, but how many tasers are we talking about that we would be purchasing?
130. We do have an option for lowering that to 100, but I tell you why that's important. Right now, the uniform services is what we're trying to really fill, but also those officers that work bars, that work security. So you have detectives, you have folks that are working in other aspects where they're not in a uniform every day, but they work every weekend at the bar. And I think if anybody's ever been to a bar in their life, you understand the likelihood of somebody getting a little rowdy there. Some bars a little bit more than others. They tend to have to use force. And so if we were not to deploy that to all the services that work in every capacity like that, then you'd run into a situation where we wouldn't have one there. We would basically, if we drop it to 100, we'd be cutting out all of our investigative services. And I think that's a problem from my standpoint, and it's only going to save us about $100,000 total cost for the 5 years. So bang for your buck, I think it's better to go full deployment. And I was thinking the other day when me and my wife first got married, everybody gave us little pots and pans and stuff, and I never can find a lid that fits, right? So if we're running around with different weapon systems and different stuff that nothing goes together, this situation would give us full deployment, would put us on track to be able to, as we upgrade in 5, 6, 10 years from now, whatever that might be, that we're all doing the same thing. So we don't have that hodgepodge of pots, so to speak.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
You just mentioned police officers who do stuff at the bars off duty. They don't use equipment from the police department when they're off duty, right?
No, they do. So that you're a total equipped. So what the law has said is basically only officers that work over 32 hours a week full time is what the TCO says can work security. And it falls into the DPS security management side of that for the state, and you are allowed to wear your equipment and utilize that. Yeah. So basically, your uniform, everything that you have, your body camera, because they're still functioning in our capacity. It's just we're having that.
But they're not in uniform.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. They're in uniform. They're in uniform. They usually respond to the scene in their police car or city vehicle, depending on what the side job is. Yeah, they're in full police uniform, and they have the full authority of that's why they do it inside the city limits, and provide security there. And we have policy in place that requires them to have a body-worn camera and less lethal of some sort. But in this case, we would be looking at making this be a full deployment now that we have all the weapon systems of having all the officers wear them.
Harry?
I guess just a real quick comment, so I understand. When these officers are working away from the police department, whether it's security at a bar or security at the Coliseum or wherever, they're still acting as police officers. It's just that somebody else is paying them for those hours that do it. Okay.
That is correct, yeah. And we've done that for years. It's common practice for every department that I've been a part of.
All right, further questions or comments before we move on? Thank you for the information. It's a good update.
Thank you so much, guys. I appreciate y'all. God bless.
Okay, do I need to go back to any of the other slides, or y'all ready to move forward?
I'm okay. We're good.
Okay. All right, so this will be what's called a record vote to propose the property tax rate. This will be the rate that we're proposing to adopt, the 0.7557. So 0.6191 of that will be on the maintenance and operations side. We are adding 0.0 7012 to the street infrastructure side, and that's in an effort to max out the 3.5% that we're allowed to increase without going to a property tax election. That will yield approximately $90,000 additional revenue to that street infrastructure fund per year, or at least for this next year. It'll probably increase in future years. And then on the debt service side, the 0.1294.
All right, so I will ask for a motion to approve this budget, or do you need each of us to record?
This is a record.
Approval,
Yes,
so
ma'am.
we don't take a motion and a second, or do we? So we're going to ask for a motion and then a second, and then when we vote, we'll individually say what you need us to say.
Yes.
Okay, so with that, may I have a motion for approval of the information that has just been presented?
I move to approve the .7557.
Is there a second? Second. A seconded by Larry. Public comment, please.
Last year it was 0.7042.
Any further public comment? Then we'll take a vote individually. So Tommy,
Aye.
do we have to repeat the .7557, right? No, just aye.
No, not on this one, just the.
Just aye. Just yay.
Yes, yay, aye.
Or yes, aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you.
Item C, item C, first reading and public hearing of an ordinance amending Chapter 1, General Provisions, Article 1.09, Taxation, Division 3, Uniform Tax Abatement Policy, Section 1.09.062, Definitions, and Section 1.09.063, Abatement Schedule of the City of San Angelo Code of Ordinances. And Mr. Schneeman, you are on.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm Bob Schneeman, Economic Development Project Manager. This is kind of an interesting topic to follow up the previous discussion, because what we're really trying to do here is increase the tax base of industrial and commercial properties, and by incentivizing companies to relocate and invest here. So I'd like you to keep that in mind as we go through this. We looked at this ordinance a couple of months ago and submitted some proposals to council and had some discussion, and you sent us back to take another look at it. So we brought back what we think are answers to all the requests that council had. I'm going to go through these, just the parts that we've changed, and then if anybody has any questions, they're more than welcome to ask them. One of the first changes we made is we added one industry, which is a battery energy storage system. These are basically what they say. They store electricity offline from the grid, and then put it back into the grid when there's a peak demand. So it's buy it cheap and then put it back in when it's needed. That's the only thing that changes in the eligibility. Is one type of company. We looked at the abatement period, and we have a specific company in mind, I should say, when we're looking at this ordinance, and that's what instituted a lot of the changes that we're doing.
It's business specific.
Sorry?
It's business specific.
It is very business specific. And this particular company is looking at about $160 million investment in the city of San Angelo, and that's a huge tax increase. And they're asking for comparatively low abatement. So the abatement period, as it currently reads, states 7 years. maximum or 5 years beyond the completion of the project. We are revising this to basically say to as set out in the agreement with the company. That gives us the ability to negotiate up to the maximum that the state allows, and if the state changes their requirements, then our ordinance would automatically change with that because we wouldn't have to go back in and change the ordinance. And the reason we're doing that is because, as stated now, the minimum, basically our standard abatement period would be either 7 years or 5 years beyond completion of the project. The company that we're looking at isn't asking for that. They're asking for 3 years. So we're saying we're going to set up an abatement period that's not to exceed. In doing that, we also looked at the percentages of abatement and the investment required and also the job creation required. Essentially what we did was at that 75% line, that used to read above $5 million investment or 30 plus employees, or above 25 employees, sorry. We changed that line to say $5 to $10 million investment and 30 employees, and then added 85% for over $10 million and over 30. And this is an and or on the job creation. They have to create a minimum of one job. And they have to have a minimum capital investment of $250,000 and a minimum of one job created. Those are the only changes that we're doing to the ordinance at this time.
So what we're asking is we change an ordinance to say specifically a minimum of $250,000 capital required. And we're asking that they only have to create one job,
A minimum of one.
a minimum of one, so
Right.
they can do
Correct.
one.
So they could have a large investment, but only create one job, they'd still be eligible.
Because of the property tax benefit that they're investing.
That's correct. And what we're really trying to do is get some of the burden off of the residential tax and shift it to more industrial and commercial.
And once again, this specific item is very specific to a business,
That's correct.
not open-ended for anybody who wants to take advantage of this.
Correct. So we will do this ordinance first reading. The next meeting we'll have a second reading, and we will also bring back a designation for that specific company.
Questions for Bob from anyone here? Questions, comments? Then may I have a motion for approval?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Second by Harry. Public comment?
Jamal Shumpert, single member, District 3. Board, I'd just like to point out to you guys that full-time equivalent does not mean that it is a full-time employee. In the past, we have approved some people who did not have one single full-time employee. They were all full-time equivalents and seasonal workers. But yeah, I guess I'd be in favor of this. And last time they did come up, I was confused about what you guys wanted them to change about this policy. Because the way that they structured it last time, I think gave the board a lot more freedom. And I'm not sure about what he changed this time, even though it says it up here. It just doesn't seem like anything changed.
It changed because, in fact, it is very one business specific, where before what was presented was sort of open-ended, any industry, any amount, there was no parameters put around it. And we asked that parameters be created. And that's what this does, is create the parameters. So every individual request would be considered before being approved.
Okay, thank you for the explanation, because when he mentioned the $160 million business, my mind got to thinking like, what? They should have been approved and whatnot. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments from
Yes, ma'am.
council?
Yes.
Yes, Karen?
We would just like confirmation that we're understanding how the ordinance would affect other businesses going forward, if at all. If we change the ordinance,
Well, that was my point, is
Okay.
that this is very one business specific. We're
Okay.
approving this today to appeal to one business
Yeah,
specific.
it's adding eligibility for one type of a business only.
okay.
Now, the criteria applies to everybody that's eligible.
And all the previous businesses that were eligible remain eligible. It's just adding that one.
Okay, thank you for clarifying it. And one further question that came up when we discussed this previously was whether or not there would be any kind of environmental impact because of the nature of the business. And if you would just repeat that for the sake of the public, I would be grateful. Thank you.
The chamber is still looking into that, discussing with the company. As I said, at the next meeting, we'll be bringing back some more company-specific information, and we can address it at that time, if that's
This is
okay.
an ordinance revision, not
Yeah,
a
this is the general ordinance.
company-specific conversation. It will have to come back for approval for a specific company. And then we can ask the questions about environmental and other issues that you might have. But this is the ordinance that allows that company to continue negotiations with COSA
Correct.
DC. Is that the right
That's
description?
That's
Yeah.
absolutely correct.
So, okay. Further questions or comments from anybody? Okay, so may I have a motion for approval?
You got one on the table, Mayor.
Oh, I already have one on the table, so we don't need to do that. So we're going to take a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0. Okay, so we are going to item E, first reading and public hearing of an ordinance amending Chapter 9, Article 9.05, camping on municipal facility of public property. And
Mayor, I think we.
did I skip one?
Skip D, I think.
Okay, sorry, back up. Item D, first reading and public hearing of an ordinance ordaining the city's participation in the Texas Enterprise Zone Program pursuant to the Texas Enterprise Zone Act, Chapter 2303, Texas Government Code, providing tax incentives, designating a liaison for communication with interested parties, and nominating Ethicon Incorporated to the Office of the Governor, Economic Development and Tourism through the Economic Development Bank as an enterprise project. You're still on.
You didn't get rid of me yet. Okay, this item, we passed an ordinance back in 2019 that expired in February 2024, basically electing to participate in the Governor's Enterprise Zone Program and also nominating Ethicon as a participant in that program.
Were there other nominees?
No, there were not. In February of 2024, the governor's office came out with some instructions, said that we could renew our participation in the program with a resolution by council. Since then, they've changed their minds and they decided we need a new nominating ordinance. So that's what we're doing today, is basically a new ordinance doing the same thing that your resolution did back in February. And it's important to point out on this that it does require, I'm sorry, it does require capital investment on the part of Ethicon, and it does not obligate the city to do anything in particular as far as any incentives to Ethicon. And the enterprise zone designation is a potential, not guaranteed, but a potential abatement of some of their, or rebate of some of their sales tax, but not the city's portion of the sales tax. It costs the city nothing. It comes out of the state's portion of the sales tax. I think that's the most important thing to emphasize.
What's the capital investment expected?
They are looking at a minimum $5 million level of additional capital investment, so. They could come back and ask us for more. We do have a tax rebate through Costa DC ongoing right now, but it's coming down to the end of its life cycle. I think it was a 5-year program, and we've got maybe a year or two left.
So this is specific to sales tax, unlike what the new legislators passed relative to Ethicon in this last session on property taxes, which allowed, what, 100, Tina's, can you quote that number? The Texas legislators passed a medical, manufacturing, property tax law that allows, I think it was 100, impact, I think it was 100 million.
Let's see, the impact for the medical equipment was $800,000 in property tax revenue.
So this is separate from that. So this would not allow them not to pay city sales tax.
Correct. It has nothing to do with our portion of it.
Okay. So questions, comments? May I have a motion for approval?
So move.
So moved by Harry. Seconded by
Second.
Tommy. Public comment on this item? There's no time frame expected, or is there, on the $5 million investment on capital?
The ordinance only lasts 5 years.
You
so
repeat that, thank you. All right, with that, we will take a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Passes 7-0. Now,
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Robert. We now move into the first reading and public hearing of an ordinance amending Chapter 9, Article 9.05, camping on municipal facility or public property. And since Teresa's not here, Brandon will present.
Yes, ma'am. So this is an ordinance to amend our current camping ordinance and to change 2 provisions in that. Before we could find someone that was camping illegally, it was a defense to enforcement if the Family and Neighborhood Services Department determined that there wasn't sufficient emergency or other affordable housing options for that person. And since that time, the Supreme Court's actually taken up this issue, and previously it was determined that if you did find them, that was cruel and unusual punishment. Under the 8th Amendment, the Supreme Court has reversed that and said it's not, and I think cities are following course and changing their ordinances to reflect that. And so the other change in our ordinance is we had an annual review process where we did determine whether our other emergency or affordable housing options were sufficient, and so we're asking to delete that provision as well.
All right, are there questions for Brandon? No, everyone's clear?
Yes, ma'am. In looking at this, it seems as though the city could handle it in a variety of ways. A draconian approach to it where we just provide very little or nothing for homeless people, or the other extreme that we continue on with the current policy. I'd hope that there's some mid-ground on this that we can agree on.
Yeah, I don't think this is intending that the city doesn't support affordable housing or other facilities for homeless to go to. I know Costa DC still does its affordable housing program. Bob Solis, he works with, community partners in that regard. And so, no, the intent of this isn't that would just totally go away, not at all.
Those are separate issues, totally separate issues. Yeah.
Is this going to put a burden on the police department that we haven't considered in the past?
I mean, as far as maybe ticket writing, because before, if there weren't those facilities available, then, really they couldn't do anything. I don't know.
It would seem to reduce it because the current ordinance, it would say you're allowed to do that, right? You're allowed to camp in public places, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's just there's designated camping, which is allowed, but this is to do with overnight camping between the hours of 10 p.m. and 6 a.m.
So I don't think it creates an undue burden. Yes, Tom?
So Brandon, if I understand this right, and I've emailed a couple times with Teresa when I saw the Supreme Court decision come out, this gives us better control over some areas that were very unsightly. We didn't have rights and some regulations to move forward. This puts some control back into the city on where people can and cannot be. As respectfully as we do that, we have somewhere to go. But I think the overall intent of this is to give the cities and local municipal governments more control on where those things can happen. Would that be a good summary?
Absolutely. I mean, it's a public health and safety concern.
Okay. Cool, thank you.
Well put. All right, further questions or comments from council? All right, then may I have a motion for approval?
So moved.
So moved by Tom, seconded by Larry. And public comment, please. Michael, come on up, so you'll be up here.
Jamal Shumper, single member, District Number 3. First off, I know it will burden the police to even have to go down there and see if they're camping. Furthermore, you're going to have to prove they were camping. Those people will fight you because they are basically renegades against the government. That's why some of them don't work jobs. They'll sit there and stand up all day and then sleep stand up all night and sleep during the day. And then that poses another problem. They'll still be in the same areas that you wanted to get them out of. They'll just find a way around this. I think the best alternative is to find a way to help them help out the city. We have a lot of trash just blowing around, and it's not because people are throwing it out their cars. It's because sometimes some of those trash bins get lifted up and they fly away. Maybe we could target certain blocks and have them pick up a couple of bags of trash a day and maybe pay for a room or build some type of temporary shelter to put them in on maybe the corner of town, areas you don't want them in. But I don't believe this way forward will work with these people.
Well, it matches up with the Supreme Court, and that's the reason we're changing it, because it's the Supreme Court ruled, and we're trying to make our ordinance to be in line with the Supreme Court ruling. Because we can't have an ordinance that does not support or goes against a Supreme Court ruling.
Yeah, we could change the ordinance, but as far as I guess enforcement, we don't have to make it a priority is I guess what I'm saying. And yeah, you're right. Sometimes people don't agree with Supreme Courts or even, other courts. So yeah, you're right. We do have to get in line. You're correct. But thank you.
Thank you for being interested, Jamal.
Ma'am?
Yes.
I agree with Miles on it. It's, the next step is a dialogue on the application of this. And I'm not sure what that is again. I'm sure Mike is going to help us on that.
Ginger, come forward, please. Go ahead, wait till you get to the mic before you start talking, girl.
Ginger Moore, 4178 Ruby Lane, San Angelo, Texas. My question is, why is it only from 10 to 6? I took my grandkids to the Bosque about, several months ago, and I couldn't stay because there was a group of homeless people playing music and drinking up above where it was. And I'm saying, why is it only 10 to 6? Why should not that be every day, all time, 24 hours, is my question. Thank you.
The public still has a general right to utilize public property, so limiting the hours that creates the nuisance and public health and safety concern, I think that having those hours does that, but otherwise, we can't keep people off common public property.
If someone's allowed to drink on that property, regardless of whether they're homeless or not, they're allowed. Is that correct? We don't differentiate between a citizen.
Yeah, it's not the
versus-
status of someone.
Yeah,
We're
that's
not looking at you're homeless, so
right.
you don't get to be. Yeah, right.
Correct.
It would apply to anyone.
That's my point. I think you're up next, Mike.
Morning, Mike Burnett, Executive Director of Concho Valley Community Action Agency and Chair of the Concho Valley Homeless Planning Coalition. I reside in Single-Member District 1, but the work of CVCA and the coalition is city and region-wide, as you're aware. First, I'd like to acknowledge the ongoing conversations with city leadership and council with the Homeless Planning Coalition about creating long-term assistance solutions for our homeless neighbors. I'm glad that the city is a partner and not an adversary in working towards this solution. I also acknowledge that the action item on camping on municipal facility or public property ordinance is due to the, as you stated, the Supreme Court's decision to uphold the ban on homeless encampments. This presents us with a challenge, though, as a society. How do we, as a society, balance the need for public order with the rights and needs of those who have no shelter? While aimed at maintaining public safety and health, the ban inadvertently places a heavy burden on those already struggling to find their footing. The items on today's agenda is something, like I said, that we have to do to be compliant with the state law, but I think there are things that we can do as a society to continue to assist those in need. We stand united in our desire for a clean, safe, and welcoming community, but we also must stand united in compassion and understanding for our neighbors in San Angelo without homes. Here in San Angelo, we pride ourselves on our community spirit and our willingness to lend a helping hand. The earlier proclamation towards Fess Parker indicated this. San Angelo is a place that helps each other. Criminalizing the act of seeking refuge in public spaces does not align with these values. It is not a crime to be homeless. It is a humanitarian issue that requires a humanitarian response. We must remember that fines and penalties do not solve the underlying causes of homelessness, some of which being affordable housing shortages, mental health issues, substance dependency, and economic disparities. Instead, fines and penalties often exacerbate the problem, making it harder for individuals to secure housing and employment. Homelessness is not just an individual's problem. It is a reflection on our society's health. When one of us suffers from the lack of a basic necessity like shelter, it is a call to action for all of us in the community. The strength of our community is measured by how it treats its most vulnerable neighbors. The support of our whole community and efforts to help the homeless is crucial. It is this collective effort that can provide shelter, food, and most importantly, a path towards self-sufficiency. Community initiatives can build bridges, can create bridges towards employment, access to health care, and educational opportunities. The member agencies and people of the Homeless Coalition have been working hard to stand in the gap, connecting our homeless neighbors to resources and services.
Thank you, Mike. Comments well made.
Was that
Thank
5
you.
minutes?
It's 3, I think.
I thought it was on regular agenda items, it was 5 for public comment.
But well done.
All right, thank you.
You made your points. I think we all heard them. Thank you. All right, so there is a motion, a second. We've had public comment. We'll take a vote. All those in favor of approving item E, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0. We'll move into our closed session portion of the agenda. Section 551.072, deliberations about real property regarding 72 East Avenue D. We will return upon completion of the discussion.
Coming. Carl and Rick, yeah. I'll tell you in a minute. Okay, the meeting is called back officially to order at 10:43 a.m. on August the 8th. There's no announcements from the closed session. So the item for announcement is our next city council meeting is on Monday, August the 19th in 2024 at 8:30 a.m. here in this building. Now, I had marked on my calendar, we also were having one on the 16th. Is the 16th canceled?
Yes.
So that's canceled, so we just have the 19th, okay. And with that, are there any other announcements from anyone for today? Okay, so let's have a motion for
Move we
adjournment.
adjourn.
There's a motion, there's a second, is there a vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0. We are officially closed for this agenda city council meeting.